what's going on, y'all? T-Bob here.
And Jake as well.
And you're about to watch a little OTB LSU.
We're going to give you all the latest, greatest between LSU football, baseball, women's basketball, softball, and everything in between.
Bottom line, if you want to talk Tigers, keep it locked, subscribe, like it, and we hope you enjoy it. Mekhi Wingo. So Jake linked this piece. On3 came out with positional rankings for different players. And how about this? Mekhi Wingo is ranked as the number 3 interior defensive lineman in the nation. Not, in the SEC. No, the number 3 interior defensive lineman in the entire nation. And yet, we don't really talk about him. And I think where it becomes exciting, Jake, why don't we talk about Mekhi Wingo? Because Maason Smith is coming back as well, right? And if you just have ever seen a picture of Maason Smith, or if you remember the series that he got against Florida State before he tore his ACL last year, Maason Smith is extra normal. He jumps off the screen. Like, you see that man, and you know you're looking at a dominant football player. I think Wingo's a bit more interesting, Jake, in that it's not, what do they call it, like off the bus team? Like, he's not
first
just
off the bus.
Yeah, he's not overwhelming you just with his sheer physical size in the same way. But when you look at the resume, all SEC freshman team at Mizzou, comes over here last year, first team all SEC, third team All-American, and now he's going to year 3. And now you team him up with a guy like Maason Smith that we also believe is All-American. And so my question to you is, could LSU have the best interior D-line tandem in the entire country?
Oh, there's no question about it. You have a guy that's, as highly rated as he is, that played as well as he did, and, going into the analytics of it, he was a top 10 player as far as graded out defensive tackles a year ago. So obviously a lot of those guys are now in the NFL, right? So if you talk about returners, he's in the top 3. So graded out at 85% for the year last year overall. Like, his run grade was through the roof. And so that's who this player is. And remember, go back to a year ago. He was the highest rated guy out of the transfer portal for LSU, but nobody wanted to talk about it. Because it's a defensive tackle.
And he's not like 6'5", like, Adonis.
Which I hate. I hate all of that. I hate the fact that he gets overlooked because he doesn't look like Maason Smith. Well, you know who doesn't look like Maason Smith? 99.9% of humans.
Yeah. Like Kyle Williams doesn't look like Maason Smith. And Kyle Williams is pretty damn good at interior.
Maason Smith is a true unicorn in his size and speed and strength and all of that. But it's okay, because you can still be effective if you are Mekhi Wingo at your size. And you were highly effective. You were on All-American teams a year ago. So, yes, I agree. You get a healthy Maason Smith. You get Mekhi Wingo. You can be creative with those players. And Wingo is as strong of a player as you will find in the country. So he does exactly what you ask him to do. Is he going to, go out there and get 12.5 sacks? No, that's not what he's asked to do. He is asked to disrupt and, get into running lanes and two-gap things and do all those dirty work type of things, right, that you might not get a lot of credit for. But coaches are certainly going to recognize it. When you turn on the film, you say, okay, you know what? Number 92 is an absolute problem. So, yeah, I would say they have a top 3, and it might be the best. Like, you would have to argue for another team for, like, me to even let you into the argument.
Yeah, and look, I want to be clear. I'm not sitting here, knowing rosters well enough or watching enough interior defensive line play to know right now who the other candidates are. So don't get too hung up on me saying, like, could be the best, or the could be is important there. All I'm saying is recognize that you have 2 guys that are legitimate. One's already got an All-American, and I believe one is a potential All-American. Like, you have those 2 guys now working next to each other that you can employ in a lot of different ways. And I guess that would be my next question, Jake, because last year, if you're playing this LSU team, you really have to focus on accounting for Mekhi Wingo, and if you could handle that, well then – it wasn't there. There was other good for sure, but it wasn't as hard. Now on the edge, you had like Perkins Ojolari and everything. But like, how does it open up Wingo? Do you think to now have a healthy Maason Smith back next to him?
Well, as you know, T. You were an interior offensive lineman. Like, now you can't maybe spend as long on that one guy, and all the double teams don't go to that one guy. And sometimes you'll check your runs off of that one player. Sometimes you'll go off shades if it's a 1, if it's a 3, depending on what it is. Maybe you're playing a 3-4, it's a 0, whatever it is. But sometimes, too, if you're playing a badass defensive tackle, it's like, hey, we're going the opposite way of him. Or if we're going towards him, we know it's an automatic double team, and we've got safety nets put into place where he's not going to disrupt us. because you have singular. But if you have two, then what do? Then you got to pick your poison, and then it becomes, hey, the other guy's got to step up. He's got to do whatever he's got to do because he's getting a one-on-one.
Yeah.
And then you got to win 95% of those one-on-ones if you're Maason Smith getting the one-on-one or if you're Mekhi Wingo getting the one-on-one. So having – and again, like to what you said, it's not being disrespectful to the guys that were opposite him a year ago, but none of them are Maason Smith.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the thing.
I mean,
just like if Mekhi Wingo
rewatch.
got hurt, like we'd be saying the same thing about him.
Maybe Taylor, see if you can find some Maason Smith Florida State highlights because I mean he was ready to dominate that game. I mean that's why he was celebrating, right? That's why he tore his ACLs because he made a big play. So yeah, I think look, the skies and you know what's so crazy, Jake, is that correct me if I'm wrong, but like on top of not really being talked about after being the most talented transfer. Didn't we just kind of expect him to be a rotational piece? Like, I don't think that anybody, I don't think anybody thought that he was going to come in here, be your unquestioned best D lineman, grade out top 10 in the country, and be an All-American.
No. I mean, I think you'd be lying to yourself and you'd be lying to the rest of the world if you thought that was going to happen. Like, one, you didn't really know the player, although he spent a year in the SEC and was really good in that year, you still didn't know.
Yeah.
You weren't quite sure how it was going to work out. And it's a position that typically rotates as much as any position on the field.
True.
Like, it really does. I mean, we could have Big Fave on here, and he would tell you, like, hey, the big boys, by about 6 plays, they start tapping the head, right? Hey, get me out of here.
Yeah, it's one of those balls to the wall hockey positions where it's like, we need full effort for your shift, go catch a breather, and then we need full effort again.
Yes, and so – he didn't do that last year. Do you remember?
He played everything.
I mean, you were breaking down the snap totals at the end of the year last year, and we were both just incredibly like in awe of how many plays he played, how many times he did not come out of a game. And he felt like he had to probably, but also remember, he won all the strength and conditioning awards last offseason. Mm-hmm. So he was ready. Like he had prepared himself to play like he did a year ago, but now he doesn't necessarily have to do that. So could you get even more from a guy that was on All-American teams a year ago? Because, hey, maybe he does get 7, 8 plays off in a game where he wasn't coming out of the game.
No.
What game was it he played every snap? It was one of the big ones.
I don't remember exactly. He just stands up there in my mind with, like, was it – I don't know. There was that one random year with Christian Lakator where, you know, he played, like, 90-something% of the snaps, like 100% of snaps in the swamp in Florida. Like, it was just one of those years where Mekhi Wingo was too good to justify coming off the field if he could handle it. And as you said, he could handle it more often than not, Jake, because he did the work in the weight room and in the offseason to get his body to that point.
Yeah, that's what you have to do. And, you know, and you have other guys too, like Jacoby and Guillory is still on this team. Like that's a player's played a lot of.
Yeah, he feels like he's on the edge of breaking. Like if he could be really impactful. He's already good, right? A legitimate starter, but like, can he take that next step and enter his own sort of all-conference conversation?
Yeah, I mean, and last year, a year ago, you had Jaquelin Roy, who had a lot of fanfare and got drafted, obviously, this last draft. So he's a very talented player. But like Mekhi Wingo was the story.
Yeah,
right.
100%.
And so like Guillory's going to be that third rotational piece, just like he was a year ago. But the Maason Smith portion of this kind of changes it, not only for LSU, not only for Maason Smith, but for Mekhi Wingo, because it's going to give him more opportunities against different blocking schemes that he just did not see a year ago.
So I can't wait, man. You should be excited if you're an LSU fan, and just know that Maason Smith is going to be on the revenge path, and Mekhi Wingo, it's going to be interesting to watch him approach it, as now he is going to be kind of heralded, right? And everybody knows he's the big dog coming back. Will he keep that same edge? We'll find out. Wow, Jake, what incredible takes.
I mean, those guys, they're just the best.
I think so. And if you think so, again, hit the like button, subscribe, ring the bell so you get notifications when we post every single day here on OTB LSU.